Welcome to Exceptional Educators Playbook. I'm Doug Smith, along with Ms. Chastity Kraft, and we're from the Kentucky Valley Educational Cooperative. And then today, the purpose of this podcast is to offer professional learning opportunities to meet the needs of our teachers, also while giving teachers a platform to share their expertise. Every month, we will highlight a different topic every educator needs to know about. Each week, that topic will be broken down into content-specific categories. Week one will explain what it looked like in literacy. Week two will look at it as how the works in math. Week three looks at through the behavior, social, emotional lens. And week four is for low incidence community. Today we'll be discussing specially designed instruction and behaviors. And we're very excited to have with us today Ms. Tara Beth Hall, State Consultant for Kentucky Avery. She's going to share with us what specially designed instruction is, how it's determined for students, how to differentiate between specially designed instruction and a supplemental aid and service, and provide examples of specially designed instruction in the classroom. So, Ms. Tara Beth, if you'd like to introduce yourself quickly, just tell us a little bit about yourself and we'll get started. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And this is a topic that I like to discuss because there's often a lot of teacher confusion with SDI versus SAS and all the different acronyms that we love to throw around in the special education world. I'm a 15-year veteran, special education teacher. I have worked with ages 3 through 21. Now, like you said, with Kentucky Avery, I've been working a little over a year, and I serve Eastern Kentucky, working with some districts and schools. So I'm just, again, happy to be here, Doug. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and start out with, specially designed instruction is what the teacher does to instruct, assess, and reteach the student. Specially designed instruction describes how the teacher adapts the content, the methodology or delivery of the instruction to address the unique needs of a student with a disability to ensure access to the general curriculum. Specially designed instruction is planned, designed, and may be delivered through an integrated and collaborative format or model. So, Ms. Tara Beth, if you could, would you put that into terms or a little more user-friendly terms? So what is, according to Ms. Tara Beth, a specially designed instruction?
When I think about SDI, I think about, we know that it's what the teacher does, okay? So that's something that we have to always keep in mind. But I think that it is, what can I do as a teacher to remove any barrier that my student with disability may have in the classroom that may prevent them from learning the curriculum? So I want to be able to close that gap between the student with a disability and their non-disabled peers and remove any barriers. I think when you look at it like that, it's a little bit different lens rather than just say, I'm going to list the things that are usually seen in an IEP.
Right.
So that's what I tell teachers when I do trainings on this is you have the chance to remove every possible barrier that may occur in that classroom. So let's outline those and let's list that in the IEP and let's support this student 100%.
Right, so pretty much basically what does the teacher do differently to make sure that the students are successful? Would you agree, Ms. Jackson?
Right, and sometimes we have to get very creative with that.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, and some of the notes that I've made, it says specially designed instructions are necessary for the student to make progress toward a measurable annual goal. Also, it's planned, designed, and initially delivered by a special education teacher or speech language pathologist. I think a lot of times we think anyone can provide those students with that specially designed instruction, but I think it goes back to it has to be a teacher that has a special ed degree. A regular ed teacher cannot provide the initial SDI. But if you're in a co-teaching setting or a situation like that, as long as the special ed teacher provides that initial instruction, then I think that co-teacher can come in and pick up from there. So I think that's one of the things that we need to make sure that it is provided by a special education teacher. Also,
and you're totally correct there, Doug, and I'm a big advocate of co-teaching. I've had very successful co-teaching classrooms in the past at a secondary level, which we know can be difficult. And so I think that goes into planning when you're lesson planning with your regular ed co-teacher, and you look at the students that you have and you look at what they need in the classroom and also the content of the lesson, and it just all goes into planning. So just like you're writing a lesson plan, to cover your content, you also need to have a plan to do your specially designed instruction for the students that have IEP. So good planning will go a long way with implementing SBI.
Yeah, I like that point. Good planning. Make sure that you're planning and working together. So according to some of the research that I've been doing and information that I found it comes from the Kentucky Department of Education. It's the IEP and Lesson Plan Development Handbook. According to them, there are 9 strategies or 9 ways to provide specially designed instruction. And I'm sure you've got those memorized. And so I got them. So some of the things that they talk about is explicit instruction, scaffold instruction, strategy instruction, direct instruction, structured overviews, tiered instruction, concrete representational, abstract instructional approach, multiple means for practice and opportunities, mnemonics, mnemonics, and then review for fluency and generalization. So of those 9 categories that I've mentioned there, I think a couple of those could apply to a lot of the behaviors that we see in the classroom or those behavior concerns that we have with our students. So what are your thoughts on which of those strategies do you think would apply? And
well, a concern that I've seen a lot working with students with disabilities is a lot of times we have concerns about on-task behavior with students. We have a lot of students that just, frankly, we feel like they just can't pay attention. So when we tell them, hey, Doug, you need to be on task, most kids don't know what that looks like. So that is an opportunity for direct instruction. That is an opportunity for modeling what on-task behavior looks like. But staying on task is probably not terminology that they're going to hear at their house.
right.
So we need to make sure that we are communicating our expectation. And because I work a lot with PBIS, that fits very nicely into that. We have to explain and model what good behavior looks like, because we can't assume that students are always going to know. So I think modeling and direct instruction are probably 2 of the big ones that I suggest and that are very easy to do for students to understand what's expected of them.
Right. And I like the point that you made, the direct instruction. And I think with direct instruction, it is, hold on a second, let me grab it real quick here. Direct instruction is where the teacher systematically and explicitly present strategies and content following these 6 steps. They review and check for understanding, present new content or skills, provide guided practice and check for understanding. Then they provide feedback, correct any inaccuracies, provide independent practice, and then review frequently. And I like you said, I think with PBIS, with teaching our expectations and our routines and our procedures, you have to teach those skills first, then you have to practice those skills, model those skills, then you have to practice those skills, and then you have to come back and return to that as often as necessary, as often as needed. So
I agree, Doug, and I feel like that teachers have often been told how to do direct instruction when it comes to academics, but we also have to remember that behavior systems look like that too, and that we need to revisit. When we come back from a long break, we need to go over our reading and math standards, but we also need to go over our behavior procedures and do some direct instruction with that. So I think that teachers are starting to now see that behavior works like that as well, and that's a big point to make.
Yeah, I agree with you for sure, because even after I have a little bit of a break, over summer break or whatever, I still got to get back into that routine of this is what professional looks like. This is, as far as these are the behaviors that they're expected of you. So you need to fall in the line. So how would you determine students' needs for specially designed instructions? What are some things that you could use or think about to determine what are the needs for that student? What do I need to do?
I think it's important to always look at them as an individual student. And I always like to start with, okay, what are the student's strengths? Let's think about the student's strengths and think about things that they can easily do, because we may need to build on those.
Yeah.
Then I like to think about their needs. Okay, where are the deficits? Where are What's the target area, target behavior we need? Then I like to look at the environment. Okay, what kind of environment are we in? Are we in a classroom with 30 other students? Are we in a speech language classroom with 2 other students? Let's look at the environment. And then also you need to look at materials. And we know that now we're fortunate enough, there's lots of things out there that we can use for resources and materials, but let's think about what we need in order to meet this goal and design this instruction for that student. And I have told teachers, if you'll just do a little chart and list those 4 things, nothing formal, just kind of as your notes. Before you work on the specially designed instruction, it will make things a lot easier.
Right. And I like the notes and the ideal. I really like that ideal. So let's go back, just backtrack just a little bit. So we talked about a specially designed instruction and a supplemental aid and service. So how are those similar? How are they different? What are?
Well, this is probably, if you ask special ed teachers what confuses them the most, this would definitely be a top 5.
Right.
and I can see why. Like I said, specially designed instruction, I think, what is a teacher going to do to remove barriers? Supplementary aids and services, I think okay, what the student needs. And like I said, when we were listing on our SDI things, needs is a part of that.
Yeah.
So link that to your supplementary aids and service. For example, if I have Doug in class, and I know that sometimes Doug gets very frustrated, and when he reaches that point, he may have an outburst that may disrupt teaching, may get other students involved, just is not something that we want to see, okay? So I know that going in about Doug. So I know that Doug needs some kind of way to let the teacher or the instructional assistant know that he is getting to that point of total frustration. So that's a supplementary aid and service. I know that Doug needs some way to let the teacher know, hey, I'm getting ready to blow up. So as a teacher, what I do is I create a system, and I put a yellow note card, a blue note card, and I know you're familiar with this process, Doug, as a behavior consultant, on the corner of his desk. And if he moves that from left to right, if he picks that card up and holds it in his hand, he's communicating to me, hey, Miss Hall, I need a minute, I need a break. And so that's his system to go. He may go get a drink of water, he may walk and check on the nurse, he may walk a lap around the square of the building, whatever you've worked out previously, but that was his way of letting you know. So that is my specially designed instruction just for Doug. Yeah. Nobody else in the class even knows what that means, and they don't need to. So that's an example of taking a student need. Okay, I know they need this. And a strength for Doug may mean that he can self-monitor enough that he can feel himself, okay, I'm starting to get aggravated. Now, if that wasn't a strength, we probably wouldn't need, if Doug goes from 0 to 60 in a split second, we probably couldn't do that system. But when I'm looking at Doug's strengths, I see that he can. Yeah. So that's just an example that I like to use. I always like to tie back to behavior because those are our kids. Yeah. And something as easy as that, and I've presented that to teachers before, and they're like, picking an index card up from the desk? And I mean, just something that simple can reduce a lot of anxiety for the student and the teacher. Yeah, and I like the way that it's put back on the student and that teacher know what that signal is or what that is without disrupting the whole class, without having to call anybody's name, without having to, once you call a kid out in front of their peers, then they've got to show off and make sure that everybody knows that they're in charge. So I like that system. That's a good strategy, and thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. So, and I have a lot of teachers that come to me and say, I've got this kid, and teachers need help. I mean, sometimes we run out of ideas because we've got so many plates that we're trying to balance. And so that's just an easy one that I like to offer teachers, and I've seen great results, as simple as it is. Yeah. And then sometimes, like you said, not only we've got so much strategies and so many resources out there that we're overwhelmed with all this stuff. So it's like, I don't know where to start. So yeah, and like you said, most time the easiest, most simple thing to put into place has the most impact. So yeah. So how would you coach a teacher? For instance, if I'm struggling with Miss Chastity in class,
She don't want to do her work, so forth and so on. How would you coach me into determining, okay, what is her need? How are you going to adjust the curriculum, or how are you going to adjust your approach to the student so that she is successful in the classroom? How would you coach me up as being a new teacher, not understanding, you know, much at all about this behavior? And a lot of times our veteran teachers have that difficulty as well. So what are some ways that you could coach me up into being better prepared and providing Miss Chastity with what she needs in my classroom?
Well, first, I would tell you that it's not you, and don't take it personally, because we know that there's a reason behind that behavior, and so we want to work to get to that, but we will probably involve counselors and administration with that. So that's a bigger issue. But in the classroom, when you're responsible for Chastity all day and her meeting her content targets, I would again go back to that strengths, needs, environment, and materials and say, okay, what does Chastity do? What does she do? Does she get along well with peers? She may be a social butterfly. Okay, let's use that. Let's let her have a peer tutoring time every day with a student of her choice if she will stay on task for X amount of minutes. And so see, we are designing instruction around her needs, but also we're looking at her strengths. But meanwhile, please look for PBIS systems, because there may be just something underlying that is wrong with Chastity. And I think teachers forget about that. They're so into the moment and what's going on in my classroom that sometimes we forget to think, hey, maybe there's a reason that she's falling asleep 10 times a day, or maybe there's a reason that she has these crying outbursts after lunch or before the buses run. So I would advise you on that first. I would pull on your heartstrings and say, let's think about this behavior. And I would help you plan some stuff in the classroom with some intrinsic and extrinsic motivation for the student. You'd be surprised how a sticker or a check mark or a kind word go a long way with all grades, all ages of students. So I think it's just taking the time to say, okay, tell me what Chastity's doing that is bothering you in your classroom, or you feel like is not successful. And then you outline that. And then, okay, what are some things that we can do to steer her another way, or some things that she's interested in? Chastity may love to read, so I can build in 10 minutes of book time at the end of the day for her if she stays on task 5 times out of 7 that day. Yeah. Just be creative and just keep in mind it's individual. What we did with Doug is not going to work with Chastity.
That's a good point. And I think a lot of times we think about, okay, you know, we talk about providing those students with rewards and things like that. And a lot of times we think about monetary things. Oh, this is going to cost. But like you said, it could be that Miss Chastity enjoys reading. So that would be a reward for her positive behavior. You know, and I think going back to as you know, I always throw everything back to you have to build relationships with the kids that you're working with. You, like you said, there may be a reason that Miss Chastity's falling asleep. You need to find out what that is. You know, you don't have to share that information with everybody, but if you find out, and that goes back to looking at trauma and trauma exposures and things like that our kids are going through. And we've got a lot of kids that are going to come back to us and to the school when they get back.
It's going to be an epidemic, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that have been through a lot of stuff, and you know, we as educators, we're going to have to realize that, because you look at how well, if we're handling this situation, but look at 6, 8, 10-year-old, 12-year-old, how are they handling this situation? Not seeing their buddies, not seeing their friends, got to be on a computer. Maybe we don't have internet, you know, and maybe I don't want someone to see my house because it's not as nice as someone else's. So you got to go back and look at those things, and how are we going to address that when they come back into our classroom?
And
build that relationship.
Because teachers are so pressured to deliver content and stay on a pacing guide for content, and we want to teach content, but I tell administrators sometimes, taking 10 or 12 minutes to just sit around and have a round table and talk to your class about what's going on in the world, that may be the most valuable 10 or 12 minutes of your day, because if you can make them feel okay about things, then they're probably going to listen to that reading instruction more intently.
Yeah.
And I think that it's okay to tell teachers to do that, but a lot of times new teachers are so scared of not being on just the minute by minute schedule, and it's okay sometimes to build in in little parts of your day, even at a secondary level, just to say, guys, are we okay? Is everybody okay? You know, just here, I'm going to give everybody a post-it note and write one thing that's good about today and one thing that's bad. You know, just get feedback from your kids, and it's not always about the content. We've got to build those relationships.
Yeah, I like the post-it note idea. You could do like a, just leave them on the board as you walk out the door.
Or like a 1 through 10. How are you feeling today?
Yeah.
You know, 1 is I don't feel good at all. 10 is I'm on top of the world.
Right.
And put it on a chart and see where your class is.
Yeah.
Do some kind of parking lot box. If they've got something that they think the teacher needs to talk to the class about, put it in there. We have to address these social emotional needs, or I promise you the best math instruction in the world doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah.
Not math teachers. I don't think
She's coming after you, Miss Wanda, Miss Stephanie. So there you go.
Heard that.
So we
And
doing
I
good?
think, Doug, as our roles, as we work in schools, as a tell teachers it's okay to take that time.
Yeah, and but like you said, yeah, it is important that they try to learn their kids. I mean, you know, and let those kids see that you're a person, not just a teacher, but you're someone that's going to care for them and going to want to try to help them.
And I can tell you something that I used to do that a seasoned teacher taught me. If a student misses school that next day, say, "Gosh, Doug, we really missed you yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're back today." I've seen high school boys almost cry just by hearing those words.
Yeah. So yeah, that's true. All right, so just wrapping up a little bit.
Somewhat. No, it's not longer.
I got so much knowledge. Oh, I appreciate it, man. That's for sure. All right, so what's some advice or final thoughts you'd like to share with teachers out there, and just any other tidbits of wisdom and information that you want to share, and we'll
I think I would just tell teachers you're doing okay. It's okay. You are doing just fine. Because I think that right now teachers are so stressed that it breaks my heart. And they need all the support they can get. So every day they're giving it 110%. And I think that they just need to know it's okay.
Yeah.
And as a regular ed teacher, work with your special ed teachers. Don't be afraid to ask them questions. If you have Doug in your class and he has an IEP and you just honestly don't know what to do, reach out to them. It's okay. I'm sure most of them are like me. We love to talk about our kids and ways that we can help our kids, and we're glad that you're interested in helping all students. So I would think just tell them it's okay. Work with your special education teachers. Take time during the day to just see emotionally and mentally where your kids are, and it's okay to take a few minutes away from content to do a mental health check.
Yes, yeah. And I like what you said about telling our teachers that they're doing a wonderful job, because man, at the drop of a hat, they turned around and they went from in person to everything online. And I mean, it was.
And now some of them are doing both. Some are teaching in person and online, and that's 2 jobs.
Oh yeah. And it's incredible how quickly they turn things around. And even in our area, in our region, I mean, you can just see the great work that our teachers are doing. And it was like, you know, we didn't have time to plan for this. We didn't have a summer or 3 months or whatever. It's like, boom, you have to do this. And I just think they've excelled. Yeah, of course, we've had some hiccups. We had some bumps in the road, but man, they've excelled when it's come to the situation that they were thrown into. And so our teachers are, like you said, they're doing a wonderful job. It's amazing how quickly they turned it around and things like that. And I like also that, you know, have that conversation with those regular ed or general ed and special ed teachers. Share information so that you can help each other. Absolutely. To make sure that little Dougie.
This is working for you in 4th grade. Share it to all grades in the schools and say, hey guys, you may need to tweak this a little, but Mr. Smith and I did this and it was awesome. Right. You know, be sure, help each other out.
Oh yeah. Because that's all you got, it's each other. That's for sure. All right. Thank you, Ms. Tara. I appreciate you being with us and your information.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been awesome. I really appreciate it. Ms. Chastity, you want to wrap us up?
I can do
You've been
that.
awful quiet.
I have been quiet today. I've been taking some notes, so
It's probably hard to get a word in.
No. Yeah.
well, no comment. But
She said no comment. All right.
no, thank you guys for joining us for this week's session of our podcast. I did write a couple notes. I would like to point out. The information has been so phenomenal today. But one thing, three things I wanted to point out for myself, being a literacy person. So coming from not the behavior background, but the literacy. But I love how, Tara, how you mentioned that reminding teachers that you teach behavior like you teach reading or like you teach math. One of the examples that Doug had shared a while back that kind of stuck with me is, if a child can't read, what do? You teach them how to read. If they can't do math, you teach them how to do math. Well, if they don't know how to follow rules, then you punish them. So, that's one of those, you want to teach that behavior. So I love that. And the other thing too is talking about trying to find the student's strengths and play on those, because, and sometimes it's harder than others to find strengths, but every student has a strength. You just might have to look a little bit harder to find it, but every student, so you play on that and use that to their advantage and yours. And the last thing was when you were mentioning about trying to find out why a student might be acting out, which is important, but that ties into building those relationships, because if you don't have that relationship, you're not going to find out why that student's acting out. They're not going to share that with you. So it all goes back, all that ties in together. So I love those points that were made. If you want deeper understanding and resources and more strategies, Doug has a behavioral podcast classroom. You can find it on the Google with the class code of WOKFFR5. And you can email Doug at doug.smith@theholler.org. We also have a Facebook page, KVEC Exceptional Children, and we're also on Instagram at KVEC EC. So we invite everybody to like and follow our pages on those. You can also find our Google site on theholler.org under KVEC and under KVEC Special Education. So there's a ton of resources and trainings and our podcast, and that it's, just a plethora of information. This is going to be our last podcast for this year. We hope that you guys have enjoyed them as much as we have. We've had a blast.
Yeah.
And
to say the least. It's been fun.
It has been fun. We've had wonderful guests, and it's been great. So we're going to highlight topics later on next year as well. So we hope you can join us. And until next time, we'll holler at you later.
Guys, have a great day. Thank you, Ms. Tara. I appreciate it.
Thank you.